Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly hangout where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. The thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. As usual, to interact with us, send questions and comments to our Twitter page at Mason Roundtable or on the Facebook event page. My name is John Ruark, past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia, and I'll hand it off to Robert Johnson for introductions.
Hey guys, Robert Johnson, past master of Waukegan Lodge number 78 in Waukegan, Illinois, current secretary and host of Wins Gaming Masonic podcast. Thanks, John.
Thank you, Robert. Moving on to past master number 3, Nick Johnson.
Past master of Corinthian Lodge number 67 in Big Time, Farmington, Minnesota.
So I got to ask, in your lodges, do they do the worshipful? Worshipful? How are you? Worshipful? Worshipful? Doctor? Doctor?
Oh man. Well, you know they added that into our constitution, so the pin cushions love it, and I always tell them, just call me Brother Nick. Thank you.
Alrighty. Juan Sepulveda.
Hello, everybody. Juan Sepulveda here from Orange Blossom Lodge number 80 in sunny Kissimmee, Florida, and the host of the Winding Stairs Freemasonry podcast.
Thank you, Juan. And last but not least, Jason Richards. We have a full house tonight.
Not past master of Acacia Lodge number 16 in good old Clifton, Virginia. Still junior warden, and happy to be here tonight.
Alrighty. Welcome, welcome. Moving into Masonic news for this week. I had a few things that are worth mentioning. But first off, I don't know how true this is, but it did come up in a couple listener recommendations and on the interwebs. But it looks like...
but it's not satire.
It's not satire. There's been a lot of satire on the internet. But let me bring up my screen here. It looks like in England, UGLE is fighting to keep their tax exemption due to that they are no longer a philosophical, philanthropic, or civic organization. I guess it's equivalent to the way that some churches have, tax-exempt status in the United States. It looks like for a while, the United Grand Lodge of England has been tax-exempt for promoting philosophy and so forth, but a high court judge has dismissed an appeal by the Grand Lodge.
Yeah, you know why? Probably because he was like, oh, Freemasons, you're not esoteric or philosophical anymore. You're just an old boys club. Yeah,
We reserve the right to tax spaghetti dinners.
that's correct.
Show me
Well,
the last
actually,
time you covered education in Lodge. I mean, seriously.
Well, actually, I was
The Lodge is
looking
the
at it a
United
little
States
bit,
shuffle.
and ooh.
Ouch.
I was looking at the thing about it, and at least from what I was understanding is that the Masonic charity is a big aspect of it, because most of the money that is doled out from that goes to members and their families. I think that was a deciding factor in that particular case. So
Well,
that would be my suspicion. So
two things. Number one, fraternal assistance and the charity should be going within the fraternity first.
Agreed.
So the fact is that these guys, that any lodge really has tax exemption, I think call me crazy, but I don't even think, like my lodge, we have in Illinois there's a tax exempt status for like property tax. I wish they would just get rid of that.
you have property tax exempt status? Can I have it?
Yeah, but
I'll take yours.
we get tax exempt status, but it comes with a price. That price is we're not allowed to do any games of chance, no fundraising, so no red raffle tickets, nothing like that. You can't drink in lodge, nothing.
We just call that Grand Lodge rules.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. We get the worst of both worlds, actually.
For us, that's written into our tax exempt status.
But we get all of that without any benefit.
Yeah, well.
So you got that to look forward to, which is nice.
So,
Hey-o.
Womp womp.
So good luck. Of course, UGLE is going to protest that and try to appeal that and take that up to higher courts. But we'll see, you know.
Start teaching Freemasonry again, and maybe they'll reverse it.
Drop the mic. I love it. Nothing else you can say. That's perfect. Moving along into news item number 2. This is a continuation of the ongoing drama regarding homosexuals and Freemasonry. It's worth mentioning that the Grand Lodge of D.C. has issued a formal statement, a press release, if you will, that declares that there is nothing against their landmarks that would prohibit a homosexual man from joining the fraternity. So,
speaking of dropping,
what do you guys think of this? Yeah,
DC dropped the mic.
Yes, they did.
Good job. I love that.
It's a good thing, right?
Yes. I mean, if nothing else, it was more so a statement just saying that you can be a Freemason regardless of your sexual preference, race, and other things that they listed. And I think that that affirmation is a breath of fresh air.
Oh yeah, I felt like proud when I read that. I was like, you know what? Now I'm proud again. I don't feel like, you know, the damage to my psyche after I read all the comments and stuff of what would happen, you know. I read that and I thought, thank God.
You see, that put things in perspective too, because I remember when when Grand Lodge of Georgia passed that thing last month, and people started going crazy and saying, "Oh, this is what should happen. All other Grand Lodges should then not recognize the Grand Lodge of Georgia." But here you see, this is not such an extreme case, but it's still having an effect where it's showing this is how we interpret it, and you know, we're proud that we're doing it this way. You know, who knows what the response is going to be from other Grand Lodges, but it's a little bit more measured response instead of a from the hip,
Well,
losing my mind kind of reaction.
the other side of that thing is the fact that, of course, there is no sovereign Grand Lodge over the United States, but anything with the DC title carries a weight that just comes with it naturally. So people see Grand Lodge of the District of Columbia, and people just think like, oh yeah, that, like, even though they understand that there's no huge Grand Lodge and DC Grand Lodge doesn't control anybody, they see DC Grand Lodge and they go, oh, well, those are some big boys saying that.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's summarized best as leadership. That is the epitome of leadership
Yes.
right there. They had no incentive to do that. They went on their own. They stood up for what was right. They made a public declarative statement that says, this is what we believe. The doors are open to you. Bring it on.
And they didn't put anybody else down in the process.
I appreciate that very much.
That's upstanding. It really is.
It's the epitome of class, and it makes me really want to join a DC Lodge at some point.
Northern Virginia.
Here first.
Okay. There's a new affinity lodge out there. Nick, have you heard of this?
I have. Well, actually, interestingly enough, I was looking around on the internet, and it looks like the first ever football lodge, so that would be soccer for us Yanks, is going to be consecrated in Hampshire. So that's the Provincial Grand Lodge of Hampshire in the Isle of Wight. And here's the interesting part about that as well, is I actually decided to do a little bit more digging on this particular story. And just because I know Robert and I enjoy this particular sport, they have also created another lodge called Rugby Bastion Lodge. That just formed. So, boom. Rugby.
That's awesome. I didn't know about that, Nick. Thank you.
Yeah.
So in football lodge, then during the third degree, does like everybody fall down and act hurt?
Ooh.
Ow, my
We call
ear,
that
ow.
the flop.
Team. That depends on the team.
Exactly.
They give the candidate a red card. Get him out of here.
Oh, the jokes keep coming.
Touche, Jason. Nice
So
job.
yeah, if you want to hear more about other affinity lodges, we have an episode on that. Episode something or other.
It's yeah,
Wait for it. He's
20s?
looking it up.
20s. I want to say.
So yeah, so now there's a new affinity lodge. And Jason, last news article of the night.
Okay, so I sent out a teaser on Facebook saying that we had some cool stuff coming down the pipes, and indeed we do. So what I'd like to unveil for everybody tonight, this has been in the works for some time.
Nick's tattoo.
Yes, exactly. So turn around and pull down your drawers, Nick, and we have the Masonic symbol on Nick's right cheek.
Ta-da!
And, ta-da!
With the face of
And-
Roy Orbison.
Yes.
Red Skeleton.
What a boy.
And if you want to see his Michael Richards tattoo, we can't really show that on the show. It's a family-friendly show. But we'd like to introduce for you now the 2016 version of the Sparklight bookmark
Yay!
that Brother Juan has graciously done for us. These really took off, and we love giving them out to people and encouraging them to give them out to others. And remember last year when we started this around the April time frame, or it might have been, yeah, it was around the April time frame, I believe, either April or September. We started a campaign called the Sparklight campaign because we were really interested in getting in touch with those listeners out there and saying, okay, what books do you have that have made a profound impact on your life? And we're going to do it again. So for the next 8 weeks, grab one of our bookmarks, and you can use the old one if you want, but if you send us an email at the Masonic Roundtable at gmail.com, I will send you out some bookmarks. You don't even have to buy any pins for them, but you totally want to buy pins and keep our lights on anyway. And within the next 8 weeks, go ahead and put this bookmark into one of your favorite books. Tell us what that book has meant to you and how it has enriched your life, and post it on either Twitter or Facebook. Let us know about it. And on episode 100 on January 12th, we will announce our next winner for the Sparklight campaign. So last year it was awesome. John Ruark and I were able to actually drive to Delaware to have lunch with our previous Sparklight winner. If you live more than 3 or 4 hours away, we are probably not going to drive to you. However, we will totally load you up with a bunch of swag, some of our favorite books, some of the things that have meant the most to us in Masonry so far, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So we are looking forward to you all participating. We are really interested in the specifics on how a given book has enriched your life. So give us, 2 or 3 sentences about what's so great about it, and share that with everybody else.
And make sure you include the hashtag Sparklight
Sparklight,
in your posts on Facebook or Twitter. And
because that's how we'll track it.
Yep. That's the only way you get credit.
Yep. So these things are absolutely fantastic. Brother Juan did an amazing job showing the dichotomy between life and death that we have to wrestle with as Masons, and it's his art is just amazing. So if nothing else, if you don't have any of Juan's artwork, this is a way to grab some of it.
You totally stole my idea, because that's exactly right. This it's a way to get some of Juan Sepulveda's artwork in your very own hands. Right, Juan?
That's your starter pack.
Starter
Yes.
pack.
Yeah.
And it has a skull on it, okay?
Yes.
And it's huge. It's way bigger than the other bookmark,
Size matters.
which means you should be reading a really big book to put it in.
Yes. Yep, there you go. There's a size comparison.
Look at that.
The previous one was for your digest. For those of you who have the little monitor.
For
that's
your
the
cipher
monitor.
book.
That's
Exactly.
gonna look ridiculous sticking out of my Mad magazines. Ridiculous.
No, but we're really excited about the new bookmarks and the new Sparklight campaign. We love hearing what inspires you. So, 2016, here we come.
Yep. So you have until January 12th. Get your stuff in, and we look very much forward to putting together an amazing goodie bag for whoever we end up selecting.
This time it's gonna be huge.
Kaboom.
Boom.
All right.
Bonus points if you live within 3 hours of me and John.
That's right.
And we happen to be up near
Doing
your way,
something,
doing
yeah,
something
General
random.
direction.
Okay.
Yes. But you got to pay for gas money. Sorry.
If you live by Nick will take you to a pub, buy you a beer, and watch a soccer game.
Oh yeah. Hold on.
Remember-
Now, wait. What?
On the show, it's now legally binding. Terms and conditions apply.
Now, if you live in the greater Chicago area, Robert will probably stay home.
Yeah. I'll send the pizza to your house.
Oh, good stuff.
But seriously, we're excited to do this again. We had a great time last time, and we're going to try to pick some of our favorite pictures and explanations, and maybe post them on the website.
Mhm.
So make them good.
Speaking of Masonic education, let's move right into our weekly educational topic on the Masonic Monday question.
On Tuesday.
Whoa. Hey, I'm back. So yeah, I've had a little bit of an absence, so I apologize. Apparently,
Fail.
organizing a new lodge is kind of a lot of work. I didn't know that starting out, and I'm an idiot. But with that,
It's easier than closing a lodge.
that oddly enough, in Minnesota, it's the other way around. It's pretty easy. I shouldn't say that, but it is. All right, so I'll read off the names and then I'll give you the answer. We had Chris, the past master, Krasnowski. Is that how you say his name? I always call him just the past master.
We'll let it slide.
Kryzanuski is the way it's
Kryzanuski.
I
saying.
think it's
Kryzanuski.
Krisen now
All right.
Sky.
All right. The past master, and he says Columbia Lodge number 285. I'll let you guys argue over that.
Well, he is the resident master of Columbia Lodge. So Chris
He
has
is-
been master of like 10 different lodges. he has a problem.
Yes.
Man, he has more of an addiction than I do. Let me tell you, it's like a Masonic Charlie Sheen addiction. Never mind. Moving on. Ryan Gardner of Fort Bragg Lodge number 667. Justin Miller, Sacramento Lodge number 24. Christopher Croto in Vermont. We've got Craig Barnes, Josh Ney, Jared Chapman, Roger Haynes, John O'Keefe, Frank Scrobot, Patrick Birch, Chuck Springer, Michael Laidlaw, Michael Overturf, Alan Little, Lou Bedford, James Webb, Joey Boyer, Mark Gooding, Wayne Anderson, Larry Fama, Joseph Land, Jim Goltz, and Will Fowler, and Bill Hosler, and let's see who else was there. Bill Hosler and Chris Fetko.
Wait, Bill Hosler watches the show?
Apparently, that
Wow.
surprised me too. Oh boy, and Jonathan Doucette. So there we go. I hope I got everybody there. The answer, of course.
Brother Jonathan
Yay.
Doucette, by the way. We have to give special congratulations to Brother Jonathan and also Brother Simon Dick, because they were both initiated last week in the same
Finally.
class, and they have been fans of the show for a while, and those guys are great.
Excellent. Well, good. I can finally take the petitioner off of their names whenever I put this on here. So congratulations, guys. All right, the answer was General Douglas MacArthur, who was made a Mason at sight by the Grand Lodge of the Philippines. He was relieved of duty by President Harry S. Truman. All right, I won't get into the details. Let's just say they didn't like each other so well. All right. So the Masonic Monday question for the week of November 16th, 2015. This week's question is, before the Grande Loge de France was formed, this English Freemason was named the Grand Master of Freemasons in France in the early part of the 18th century. This famous Freemason also has the interesting distinction of being elevated to a dukedom while not being closely related to the monarch, and also while being a minor. In fact, he is the only one who has since the 15th century. Who was this famous Grand Master of Freemasons of France? When you have the answer, send it to masonicmonday@gmail.com. Don't forget to include your lodge name, lodge number, and the hashtag fraternité. Fraternité. And I want the accents.
In the
Merci
right place.
beaucoup.
Nice. Alrighty, thank you, Nick. Moving into this week's episode, Temperance. This is the beginning of a 4-part series. Yes, we are actually going to do these in order for the next 4 weeks. Very excited about this for continuity's sake, as well as to carry a theme. And I think hopefully you guys will find this enlightening. If not, bear with us for 3 more weeks, and we'll get to a different topic. But I'm actually excited about
And
this.
also, you get what you pay for.
Right.
I'll drink to that.
So let's move right into Temperance, but it's deserving of having a little bit of context of how Temperance fits into the fraternity as a whole. Now, Temperance is one of the moral virtues, or the cardinal virtues, as laid out through antiquity. So I'm going to set that up a little bit, and then we'll dive into specifically Temperance. But the moral virtues, or the cardinal virtues, come from writings as far back as Plato's The Republic, in which he goes into detail about what the integrity of a man should contain. And it contains things like bravery, temperance, wisdom, those kind of things. It then evolves in a couple of years we find the writings in the Apocrypha included with the King James Version of the Bible in the book The Wisdom of Solomon, where in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 8 verse 7, and if a man love righteousness, her labors are virtues, for she teacheth temperance and prudence, justice and fortitude, which are such things as men can have nothing more profitable in their life. You also see that they treat righteousness as a female. You'll see a lot of that. Sophia, the sacred feminine, you'll see a lot of that reference there of wisdom, right? So wisdom is the epitome of these virtues, right? That being able to own these virtuous facets, these virtuous elements. So
well, wisdom has historically been a female, just even in Greek mythology.
Very true. Very
Ask
true.
any of your wives if wisdom belongs to the feminine or the masculine.
District,
Hashtag truth.
the District
yeah.
of Columbia. That's all I'm gonna say.
Columbia.
Yeah.
Nice.
Who's on top of the Capitol? A lady.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom. Moving on to temperance. What is temperance? It's probably worth explaining the literal definition of it, how it applies to Masonry as we know it, and then how we get to the philosophical aspect. So I know Jason had some notes in our research for the show. Will you share with us the definition of temperance?
Sure. Temperance, simply put, is exercising moderation when it comes to your natural passions. So it's in a lot of ways, when you look at it from the philosophical aspect, it's really the suppression of the id, the suppression of that natural carnal self, that sense that you have inside of you that makes you want to give over to just basic urges.
Is that the ego or the id? I'm not sure. I think it might be the ego. the selfishness, the selfish part. Unless I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, the broad term of temperance. I mean,
The id is a set of uncoordinated instinctual trends.
Yep.
Boom.
Thank you for clarifying that. So what does that mean for Masons, right? What do we do with that? We do reference temperance a couple times in our ritual. It wouldn't be giving anything away to say that we want to be temperate and not do things to excess, like drinking. Is that a fair statement?
is that why it's not allowed in lodge?
There are many reasons.
I don't know. What do you think, guys?
Well, hold on. Do you want to look like this guy?
There he is. Stumbling home. That's a famous piece of artwork Nick is showing.
Yep.
I have a natural tendency, a deep urge all the time to give lots of money to people, but I'm really good at temperance.
I'm glad you're tempering yourself.
That's
Don't.
very good.
Just don't.
You want to go crazy with the charity.
I mean, otherwise, I'd lose my tax exempt status.
I wanted to mention on the definition, in one of the definitions, it explains this as the moderation in action, thought, and feeling, in habitual moderation. I like that it says habitual moderation because it alludes to making a habit out of that restraint. And if you compare it to stamina in exercise, the more that you subject yourself to the exertions of exercise, you build a tolerance and you build a stamina. And this is one of those virtues that, by the same token, if you are habitual in trying to restrain yourself and keep moderation in your consumption of things and other things, then
Passions.
such as so, by making it a habit, then you are less likely to succumb to the temptations of vice whenever it becomes available.
It's right. It's the same token. I mean, if you consistently, habitually resist, you get better. If you habitually give in, you dig yourself deeper.
Very true. It's positive and negative feedback.
Well, it's like what do we all come to Masonry to do, right? We come to learn to subdue our passions, and that is temperance. That's one of the first lessons that we're instinctually taught as Masons.
So I'm glad you brought that up because that was going to be one of the philosophical and psychological aspects I was going to go into was by the mere act of divesting yourself, breaking yourself down. Any initiatic school, even military boot camp, they break you down so you can be built back up, right? You can be shaped, you can be formed. And it all starts right. And it just starts with getting rid of things, not getting rid of the former, subduing your passions, and really keeping yourself in check. You have to do that first. You have to get rid of the bad things about you in order to know thyself.
Well, that's like, divestiture really leaves you open to new things and absorbing, new ways of thinking.
Well, and it's interesting within, pretty much every religious tradition, this concept of moderation, of temperance, of controlling yourself, whether it's Buddhism that focuses on the idea of, these things, essentially cause you suffering, to a Christian virtue concept, which is, that sin, even though you have this person who served as some kind of paschal lamb, even then sin exists, and it's constantly in your mind that something you could do, you might do, you will do, and there's always this contrition and confession that exists. And it seems kind of interesting to me, at least, that in the Masonic fraternity, it's a major concern, because we even have an entire lodge office dedicated to this particular virtue, to maintain it above all others. And in Plato's Republic, if I remember correctly, it was something on the order of each of these virtues go into levels. I mean, that's kind of what Plato's whole idea is levels of forms and things like that. And of all classes, from the lowest all the way up, the most important one that they had to control first before you could even get to the other virtues was the idea of temperance, of being able to control those animalistic tendencies that you have so that you wouldn't go any further, and so that you could actually elevate yourself to the next stage. And it was oftentimes focused on the idea of the commoner, the farmer, the person who works the land, that they're so close to nature themselves that they might take some kind of value from it and leave humankind and human nature. So it's kind of interesting that we, even in our own fraternity, are very focused on the idea of temperance. I mean, we have a guy here who does it. We have a jewel that you look at that's supposed to explain it to you. And I think it's very important. Now, that isn't to say that we don't have those problems, obviously, because again, the guy exists, so there might have been a problem at some point. But I just think it's kind of very interesting that we start at this level and then move up from there.
I think it's worth mentioning too that it is not the elimination of these temptations. It is the understanding of who you are in relation to them, and I see you should almost have a predetermined decision. That way, when you're presented with the temptation, you know what to do. You're not making the decision under the pressure of the temptation. You have already made a predetermination of what your behavior will be once a difficult situation arrives.
Know thyself.
Let me build on that. Exactly. In certain schools of thought, in order to establish temperance, you really basically need three things. You need a pattern of action. We talked about the habit. You have to, we are our actions. So you can say one thing, but if you do the other, that's who you are. And so you have to figure out what you need to be temperate of, and do that and be that, and make a habit of that. Don't be temperate when it's convenient or when people are watching, or when it's the right time to do it. Do it all the time. Enjoy life, but not to excess.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing you have to have is the right set of desires. You have to have a reason why you're doing it, motivation, right? So if it's even just strictly trying to establish a new habit for a pattern of I'm not going to snack at work, right? You have a reason, a desire that you're trying to get out of a benefit. It can be self-serving, or it could be altruistic, but because I might want to protect someone, that might be a reason to go to war. But maybe another reason to go to war is I just want to show off. So there is motivation. And then finally, the third thing that Plato would say you would need a knowledge or reasoning to help you establish your criteria. Other religious dogma would say that you would need something that can only be a virtue, like temperance is only a virtue if it's God inspired, if your ultimate goal is to satisfy Him. So having kind of that three-legged stool that establishes the why you're trying to be temperate, and how you're being temperate, really helps you establish that as a pattern.
So it's not enough that you want to abstain from alcohol and overeating to lose weight.
Well, that's a very good way to present it, and it's important that we make the distinction. And I don't know if we mentioned it before. There are a lot of people that will associate temperance with alcohol and nothing else.
Thank you. Thank you.
Temperance is not limited to the consumption of alcohol.
However, just a point is, if you type temperance into Google, the only definition that comes up is abstaining.
Therefore, that's the only answer.
I'll drink to that.
Cheers.
Salud.
But yeah, even when we talk about this idea of subduing passions, that is temperance in and of itself. You can be temperate when it comes to anger, overreacting, criticizing others, It's all about molding yourself into a better man as part of this fraternity, and temperance is right at the core of that.
And it's kind of interesting that we focus so heavily on temperance within a men's fraternity. And I was watching a special on the brain on Nova, and it was kind of interesting. The presenter posited this question. He said, "What genetic defect of which half the population has leads to almost 90% of prison populations to have them?" And here's what his conclusion was. The Y chromosome, and it's true. The Y chromosome is a mistake, and so I find it interesting that a men's fraternity focuses on temperance so much because we are driven differently, mentally, physically, emotionally, than perhaps women. And I just found that very interesting that we as men in a men's fraternity focus so heavily on temperance because we have a genetic defect. I said it first.
Wow.
You know what's interesting is a long time ago my wife asked, "So why can't ladies be Masons?" And I think I had just gotten started in my journey in the craft, and I said something like, "You don't need it."
And that's excellent.
Like at some point,
That's fair.
man is still. We're all still just animals, right? And for whatever reason, ladies tend to learn about things, and men are still wild beasts sometimes, and maybe we just gotta
More like wild train wrecks.
learn how to be better.
But that's true. We really have to spend some time moving from the square to the compass.
Indeed.
Now, another thing I wanted to mention too. Getting some feedback. Are you guys getting feedback?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Makes everything sound more dramatic.
In my research too, I think it's also interesting that psychologically. Oh, this feedback isn't. That psychologically, there are some benefits of being temperate, and that's not again just on alcohol, but
You're talking like Chris Walken.
oh gosh, it's so bad.
Now batting for
Mike Piazza.
And see, it doesn't happen on yours.
All right, everybody mute.
Wait for it. Hey, that's good. Okay, as I was saying, that there's been some psychological studies done as well with temperance, specifically including 4 other factors to include self-regulation, forgiveness, humility, and prudence. But we'll cover prudence in another episode. One thing that I found really fascinating was some of the internal and external benefits of temperance. That there have been psychological studies that have shown that things like self-regulation, when you enjoy things just to the limit, but you don't have to go over the top, you don't have to overindulge, you can enjoy a nice meal without getting seconds, thirds, and 5 desserts. But spiritually, if you learn to, again, divest yourself from anger, divest yourself from the world, the buzz, the noise, if you start to do meditation, those kind of things, you're able to experience life without getting emotionally attached to your experiences. So that way you can almost participate as an external observer, and it's kind of hard to describe, but you're not as emotionally tied to the outcome of events in your life. Now, I'm not saying that you become dull or muted, but I'm saying that you don't get caught up in your own emotions. And so temperance helps subdue that passion that way. Forgiveness is another key aspect of this. We've talked about food and alcohol. We've talked about anger. What about forgiveness? Holding grudges. If you truly learn to forgive, and as a Christian, we're taught to, how many times are you supposed to forgive? 70 times 7. You're just supposed to forgive people. If you really, truly, honestly let go, and I know this is very hard to do, I'm still working on it, But once you just learn to forgive and just not hold anything that someone did in the past to you on them, when they say they're sorry, it's done, it's over. It actually has internal benefits and external benefits. For those who improve the more forgiving people, they tend to have less anxiety, they tend to have less depression, they perform better on physically challenging tasks, they're more social. I mean, all these things are benefits to yourself and to society, just by the mere fact of you being temperate and holding back on letting your emotions go wild. And so it's really fascinating that you can take a psychological aspect of temperance, and it not only makes you a better person, which is the whole point of Masonry, but it actually gives forward. It actually shows you as a more charitable person.
Yep.
It blew my mind.
I love that. I love that too. And I've been for over a year now. I've been working on that whole aspect of habits and creating. And I now have the feedback.
Mute everybody.
We found out the problem is Juan.
Yeah, probably is. So one of the things that I've been mentioning a lot, and I've been working very diligently in my own life, is having that control of my time. You see, in the same degree that you're dealing with the virtue of temperance, you're also dealing with the working tool of the 24-inch gauge, and it is crucial that you pay attention to the equal distribution or a fair distribution of your time, especially when it comes to refreshment and sleep, because your tolerance, your patience, your ability to control yourself and to do your passions, it's going to be dramatically affected by your lack of rest. And if for those of you who want to hear more about it, episode 30 of The Winding Stairs, I talk about it, and I cannot remember if I already recorded another episode about it and published it, or if it's still one of the ones in the can. But I had been just recently recording about it, the importance of focusing on that aspect, because it's like a well-oiled machine. You're expected to work perfectly every time, but if you don't maintain it in the appropriate way, then you will be a fool to expect it to really work correctly every single time. And I'm muting myself.
All right, let's see if that works. It is a live show, folks. All right, Jason, why don't we go see what they're discussing on social media?
Well. Anyway, we've got some great. Oh man. We have some great interaction on social media, but I'm gonna mute myself.
I think we fix it.
Okay. Yeah, now we go. All right. Let's see. Interesting article from Donnie Dillon, who said, interestingly, the temperance movement's focus on the temperance movement in the U.S. was driven primarily by women of the day, and that just. Oh, we lost RJ. And that just goes to reinforce the idea of men and women being wired differently.
Yeah, so the biggest historical reference is, the temperance movement, and temperance was directly linked to the Methodists trying to control, alcohol consumption, which led to the Prohibition. Really good documentary, the Ken Burns documentary on Prohibition, if you haven't seen it. But we talked about that. Temperance, the first thing people talk about is alcohol. There's historical context there.
And Michael Overturf has submitted the first Sparklight campaign entry of the 2016 Sparklight campaign. Good job, Michael. It doesn't mean you won.
You'll get extra credit.
Um,
Michael is getting an insane custom-made apron very soon, just like RJ.
just for being the first Sparklight campaign poster?
No, this was something else. Previous arrangements.
Everyone's gonna be posting first on all the comments from now.
Yes. Here's something that was submitted actually yesterday from Blake Leach. It said part of our old petition sheet asked the proposer if the prospective candidate was known to drink to intemperance,
Whoa.
among other questions regarding his character. So he often wonders if lodges which have prospective members attending banquets for a time before they're joining use that period of measure, or use that period to measure such a thing as well.
Oh, I love that.
Is it also in the Shriner's petition as well?
Probably not.
Yo. We're not making any friends this episode, are we?
No, we're not. We're like alienating everyone.
All right.
We had a nice temperance thing until that.
Until.
We failed to subdue our passions with the shrine and Charlie Sheen.
You know, something very important to mention, brothers who are listening or watching, you will hear eventually, at one point or another, someone make a joke, someone say something in jest. It is important that you understand and recognize and keep your passions within due bounds with your response, that it is in good fun. I know that Brother Jason recently he made a funny comment about before the generational episode about the baby boomers.
Oh,
Brothers,
yeah.
if you're a baby boomer, we welcome you to listen. You know, we need you and we want you to be here. If we made a joke, it really was not in to offend anybody. So temper yourselves, brothers.
No, we are. The Masonic Roundtable is 5 best friends who are Masons inviting you all in to be our best friend for the hour that we're doing this. And that's why we go to social media. That is why we invite you all in to participate in the discussion with us, and that's why we crave your participation. So, and that's also why we make jokes.
Yeah.
That, and we all have the maturity of 12-year-olds.
Well, yeah. That too.
Temperance.
All men.
That aside, we love you all, including the baby boomers, especially Scott Sherman.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Scott Sherman is kind of bee's knees.
He is. We love you, Scott. So that's about all I've got for social media.
Alrighty, let's start wrapping it up then with our final thoughts. This has been an interesting episode. We've been all over the place, but I've learned a lot. So let's go to Nick to start bringing us home.
Sure. I'll just quote something that's monitorial that's here in Minnesota. And so, intemperance is described, at least Masonically, as a due restraint upon our affections and passions, which renders the body tame and governable, and frees the mind from allurements of vice. And that's a very interesting concept to me. It's one of those that the first step in which to use these virtues, the first step to reaching that noble goal, which, I don't know if we're going to talk about it in our last, and I can hold off on using it, but no, I won't. Sophrosona, so that's, the self-restraint, the idea of, moving yourself to a thoughtful thinking, less emotional. Now, it's interesting that now we're focusing on this concept of emotional health and emotional intelligence. And so, it's been getting a little bit more complex, at least understanding what we, not only as Masons, but as men, should have to do or understand how to apply these various virtues to our lives and practice. But at least for me, I try to employ temperance particularly, and this includes my Masonic duties, which I'm starting to discover I really need to stop going to so many meetings. So maybe that'll be my Lent goal. My Lenten goal this year is to reduce the number of meetings that I go to in a month by 1, because even in Masonry we can become intemperate. So it's just one of those things. You have to free your mind, and you have to get away from those things that just make you a little bit too impassioned to the point where you lose all sense of what's going on around you. So, with that, millennialfreemason.com, it's a blog. I have some stuff coming up soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nick. Robert Johnson, final thoughts?
Well, there's a lot to be said, really, but summing it up, when you talked about becoming an observer, when you practice temperance to a point of using it during meditations and things, I can attest to that. Absolutely. I have been called lots of things in my life. Sometimes people call me, they don't understand it. Like, I'm very emotionally even, pretty baseline most of the time. It takes quite a bit to get aroused out of me most of the time, and that's just because I'm pretty, I'm a 0 on the litmus test. But
You're a stoic.
I'm a stoic. Yeah, right. But so practice those things, and you'll kind of feel the way that feels. It's not a bad thing. And what's really great about temperance is, as Nick pointed out, we have almost the same ritual. I mean, that was pretty verbatim for what we have. And it's interesting. In Chicago, that means, you can't be bought, which is interesting because it's Chicago and people get bought.
Everybody can be bought in Chicago.
But if you think about that, I mean, so if you really render yourself governable and tame, and you're using temperance, nothing can sway you from doing the right thing. So sometimes people will have a selfish everything is selfish, but to do something for yourself, let's say, to practice temperance for a goal that is selfish is, it's still selfish, but hopefully it's making you a better person. But ultimately, the goal that comes after and down the road is that temperance that you have practiced, regardless whether it was selfish or not, you've basically built up this tolerance behind the scenes. So when it actually comes time for something, you are going to have that ability to say, no, seriously, guys, I'm just having one, and then I'm hitting the road. Or, maybe you fill in the blank. I mean, like you said, it's hard to, the first thing that always comes to mind is booze, right? Because that's something that's in everybody's life. A lot of guys go out after lodge to have a beer or whatever. So, if that helps you think about it, then that's the way it is. But great show. Thanks for watching. That's all I got.
Thank you, Robert. Let's move to Juan Sepulveda.
I want to echo what Robert was saying. I think that's right on point. And he used the example of booze, but donuts.
I love donuts. Why'd you go there?
I'm a sucker for sweets. And we talked about knowing yourself. If you know yourself, you can then make decisions prior to the moment of presenting yourself with a temptation that can minimize the opportunity of you succumbing to excess. So it applies to everything. If you know yourself, or if you're in the process of getting to know yourself, and you know that if you buy the whole dozen of donuts, you're going to have one in the morning, you're going to have one at lunch, and you're going to have one at night, then temperance here comes into play, because then maybe you make the decision of, no, I'm just going to buy 6, and I'm going to offer one to a couple of people so that I reduce the chances of me just shoving all of them in my face. So I like the fact that we're giving some concrete examples of how temperance can be applied to our lives. And brothers, there is so much content for us to implement into our lives and become better men within just the first 3 degrees of Masonry. We're hungry for esoterics, and we want to climb up, degree by degree in the York Rite and the Scottish Rite and all the different bodies. But there's so many simple things here that we can discuss and become better through. So I hope that you brothers indulge intemperately in those lessons. And finally, brothers, I invite you to go to freemasonryart.com for we right now are partnering up with Brother Edgar, who is from Masonic Revival, and for those brothers who are members of the Scottish Rite, you can only find this beautiful tie. I don't know if it's focusing or not.
It is. Looks
It
great.
is. You can only find it on freemasonryart.com. You help us continue to offer good Masonic products.
Tonight I'm wearing the Memento Mori as well.
Yeah, just like John is wearing this very same one right here. You can only get it if you go to freemasonryart.com, and you help us keep on doing the work that we do. So thank you very much for supporting us, brothers.
Is that Scottish Rite tie a northern or a southern jurisdiction tie?
I believe it's the northern. I mean,
I'm
southern, sorry.
Just kidding.
It's because it's not flat.
Oh, there's some jokes that I'm not even going to touch. All right. Thank you, Juan.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Jason Richards.
Speaking of temperance, so I want to reiterate something that RJ said, but take it in a different direction, because Robert was talking about, okay, temperance should not be selfish. But at the same time, don't confuse temperance with self-denial and simple self-denial, giving things up. Just because you think giving things up is the right thing to do, this isn't supposed to be like a self-flagellation type of process. You're not going to get anything out of starving yourself, whether it be physically or spiritually or mentally, if you aren't cognizant of a goal and how it's going to either build you into a better person or increase the quality of life of both you and those around you. So I would say, yes, you don't want to enter into a state of temperance with super selfish motives, but at the same time you have to have a goal in mind. And if that goal is centered on making yourself better, improving your quality of life, improving the quality of life of those around you, yes, that while that could be seen as slightly self-serving, you can't really enter into a state of temperance without having that clear goal of what you want to get out of it. So just something to think about, and it all goes back to circumscribing your desires and keeping your passions within bounds. And that's what we're taught as entered apprentices, and it weaves its way throughout everything that we know as Masons. And so if there's one thing that Masonry teaches us is to keep everything on the level and keep an even keel, so that we can build ourselves up into better people and make those around us better.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Jason. All right, for my final thoughts, Jim Gaffigan has a really funny bit about McDonald's, that no one wants to be caught in McDonald's. No one wants to be seen that they were at a McDonald's. What are you doing here? I'm here for a friend, right? But it doesn't have to be a physical McDonald's. He goes on in his skit that says everyone has their own McDonald's, whether it's a guilty pleasure that you have, whether you have just something that is holding you back from being a good person. But the important thing is, with temperance, I think it's fascinating as a system of morality that temperance is one of the first things we're taught as an entered apprentice, right? Before you move on to any advanced knowledge, that is something you have to be taught early on. You have to be taught to get rid of your passions. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The more I read, the more I study about Masonry, everything is symbolic. So while you can take the literal version of temperance as meaning don't get drunk and spill secrets, right? Loose lips sink ships. We're not talking about that. At a face value we are. But I think the system of morality that's evolved over all these mystery schools to become the fraternity we have today is that it's really it's a foundation of a spiritual journey, right? You have to divest in order to grow. You can't move forward philosophically and spiritually with baggage. So if we're taking good men and making them better, that's one way of how we do it. With that, thank you very much for watching. See you next week, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.
And